Hello there. I'm in the middle of trying to put on the finishing touches of this week's episode of The Public Gallery, and we're talking about crime and punishment because it's a big topic that's always in the news and it's been pushed a lot recently by political parties as they start to launch their election campaign. And one of the things I found most fascinating about these conversations is just how little trust the participants had in mainstream media's ability to accurately portray what's happening in terms of crime. Because while there's an old newspaper adage, if it bleeds, it leads, and violent crime, it draws people in. There's a reason why true murder podcasts are so popular. People are just drawn to that kind of violent crime and criminal behavior. And media outlets know it. So if we look at what came out in the news yesterday, there were a couple of really interesting stories. There's the story of the millionaire who was giving money away to artists who was trying to bribe them so he could sexually assault them. That there, though, is not the kind of story that involves a lot of widespread violence that scares everybody. It's a really targeted group that this particular individual was targeting. For some weird reason, there's a whole bunch of intrigue going on where he hired Javan Golter, who was the Tamaki's token gay friend, until they fired him for making this comment about Kanoa Lloyd. He somehow ended up in Australia, and it's a mess. But it's not one of those sort of crimes that's going to end up scaring everybody. It's just going to make people go, ooh, that's disgusting. I hope those people get justice and the guy is stripped of his knighthood. Now, I'm talking about this story from Dunedin, a malicious ram raid on Michael Woodhouse's office. Only that's not what actually happened. But the Stuff article says that. It calls it something slightly different, but it uses the term ram raid because that's a scary term that we know is bad and the government isn't doing enough about it, and I'm going to click on this. But what actually happened was somebody broke into a car at the top of a hill and they pulled the handbrake off, the car rolled down and bumped into his office. It is not a ram raid by any stretch of the definition. But that doesn't sell papers, that doesn't get people angry and worked up, and it doesn't feed into the narrative that crime is on the rise. Yes, a crime was absolutely involved in this, but it is not the big violent crime that they're pushing the narrative on. This kind of narrative editing is something that we all need to watch, especially going into the election. It helps you identify the kind of bias that your media has. If you were to put something like this on TVNZ, people wouldn't buy it. Or would they? And this is where things get really super tricky because most people can't identify the media bias that they're dealing with, which is one of the reasons why we have such low trust in how the media presents things like crime and how we can go about fixing the issues that lead to crime. So complicated. I'm going to love this episode when it's finally finished.